Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks exciting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. Oh, and just one more thing before we go. Please consider like, commenting, and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. But now with all that out of the way, let's carry on with the video. Okay, so with our stone giant here, you can see I've given him a nice zenithal highlight prime to really help the piece stand out. As well as that, I've also built a bit of base, and this is just using some cork, some sand from my driveway, and a bit of vallejo earth texture. But once we've got all that, and you've got it all arranged how you want it to, and you've got them primed up, we're going to start off with the base coat of a miniature. And for this, we're going to be using some basalt grey for the base colour of his flesh here, so anywhere where his skin is showing, which on this piece is quite a lot of the miniature. And we're starting out with this, because stone giants are sort of a grey bluish colour, so I'm going to start off with a nice deep grey, and basalt grey is going to be a good selection for this, especially with the colour I'm trying to pull off for this miniature. So just getting it everywhere where we want that skin tone to be, and keep that skin layer nice and even across the whole miniature. And then once we have that base colour down, we're going to come in now with some uniform grey, which is a nice bluish grey, and we're going to start off our first layer of highlights with this. So this is going to be hitting all the high points on the miniature, and since he is a lot of skin and flesh, he's got a lot of exposed areas, so we want to be hitting pretty much all the high points. It's sort of like painting the miniature over again, but we're just leaving out all the cracks and the recesses and just inside the fold. So we're painting a lot in this highlight, since there is a lot of the skin exposed, and there's going to be a lot of places where the sun is bouncing off, and we want to come across as a blue tone overall. And it's just a matter of picking out these areas and just taking your time. If you need to switch to a smaller brush to get into some of those areas, don't be afraid to do that as well. And then once we have that done, we're going to come in now with our final highlight, and this is going to be using dark sea grey, which is a nice lighter grey than all the other greys we've been using. So again, we're just coming in and placing it the even smaller layer on those areas where we want it to be nice and bright and shining on the piece, where sort of that sun is going to be nice and reflective, and it's going to be our highest point of colour. So don't be afraid with this, especially since we're on a stone giant and the miniature is nice and big, so we want to be picking out some nice bold areas with the piece. So just spend a little bit of time really picking out those high points, as you can see that I'm doing here, just really carefully going around and looking where the highest points are and picking out those spots. And then once we have all those places picked out, we're going to start off with clothing he's wearing, and we're going to be using cavalry brown to do this, which is a nice reddish brown. It's going to help really contrast against that greyish blue colour we've got going on with his skin, and really help make the piece really pop. So cavalry brown, when we're placing over his skirt that he's wearing here, really getting into all those areas, especially since there's a lot of jewellery and stuff all over him. So don't be afraid to really get in there and get all those pieces nice and covered. And this is going to take, of course, probably 2 coats to get a nice smooth colour over the whole piece. Then once we have that colour down, we're going to come in now with some ivory, and time for some hard work on painting miniatures, and that is, of course, painting the eyes. I always struggle with this, especially trying to get them right. So don't be afraid if you mess this up a couple of times. We're still in our base coating stages, but since we have those highlights on there, it's going to be a little bit harder to paint, but it's just a matter of taking your time, really putting a small amount of paint on your brush and really going over it, really trying to keep those hands steady as much as you can anyway. And then once you've got that white placed down, time to come in with a little bit of black and place in those points of the eyes, which are always notoriously difficult, and I still have a really big problem with that, and I switched to a even finer tip brush to do this and slowly dotting this in. So don't be afraid if it takes you a few times. I know this at least took me 2 or 3 tries to get right, where I just have to let the paint dry, reapply that white, and start over again. Then once you've got those eyes looking as decent as you can, we're going to come in with some fur brown now. And what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be placing some sort of texture detail to the bottom of his skirt that he's wearing here. And I'm going to be placing just stripes along this part. It's going to be a little bit hard to see because it's a very reddish brown on top of a light reddish brown. But trust me, once I get a few layers of paint on there, you'll be able to see it a lot easier than what I'm doing right now, since the paint is wet and the colours are very, very similar, but it'll dry a slightly different colour. And I'm just going down with strikes, making it sort of look like there's wear and tear on the bottom of the skirt. And then once you've got that done, we're going to come in with some khaki now, and we're going to be applying this again in the exact same way, coming down and placing some little stripes, and we're just placing it in between those areas that we just placed down before with the previous set of stripes and strikes that it has on the bottom, just giving it that really worn appearance. At least that's what I want to hopefully come across. It may come across as that, or it may just come across as some sort of design. Either way, you can see a lot better with the khaki of what I'm trying to accomplish here, and it's just a matter of going around the entirety of the bottom of the skirt to really make sure we pick it out and have it nice and consistent across the whole miniature. And then once we have that worn texture of the skirt complete, we're going to come in now with some burnt umber. And we'll be using burnt umber for the belts that our stone giant is wearing. So as you can see, there's got a couple of belts on him there holding various weapons and trinkets and stuff on there. So we want to make sure we get a nice even coat across there, being very careful not to get it anywhere we don't want it to. And as you can see, I've switched to a reasonably smaller brush to do this as well, so I can really get in there and not have to worry too much about the other areas of the miniature. Then once we have that complete, we're going to come in now with some stonewall grey. And we're going to be using this to paint up the rock that he's wearing in his hand. Now, stonewall grey is a very different coloured grey than what we've been using with all our bluish greys for his skin. This is a sort of very whitish grey, so it's going to help really contrast and make that rock completely stand out from the skin of our stone giant. So we want to have that nice contrast, so you can definitely tell he's holding some sort of boulder, but it's completely different from the colour of his skin. Then once we have that complete, we're going to come in now with some leather brown. And leather brown we're going to be painting for all of the shafts on the weapons he's holding, because he's got this nice big stone warhammer basically in his hand. As well as that, he also has a little hammer on his side as well that we want to be painting up the handle with the exact same leather brown. And this is different from our other browns that we've been using, so it's going to help make it stand out on the piece as well. So don't forget to do those in a slightly different color brown, so we can definitely see that all these things are made from slightly different materials because they're being in different colors. Then once we have that picked out, we're going to come in now with some matte black. And what we're going to do with the matte black is we're going to be picking out the jewelry that he has on him. He has this nice sort of band around his shoulder that he's got here, as well as a necklace on, and we're going to be using matte black to pick that out. It's going to be very different from all the other things he's wearing, so it's going to be a nice standout piece and help frame those sort of areas of the miniature as well with the black. So just a matter of going in with a nice fine tip brush and being really careful, because we don't want to get that black spilling over in any areas where we don't want it to as well. Then once we have that complete, we're going to come in now with some Dectan, which is a nice sort of off grey whitish color, and we're going to be using that to pick out these little stitchings that this stone giant has across his skirt here. So just going along very carefully, really making sure we pick them out and get just those picked out, and it's going to be a nice visual interest to the piece. Then with those little bits of stitching picked out, we're going to come in now with some gunmetal. And there's only a small amount of sort of metal on this miniature, since he is a stone giant and sort of based on primitive sort of cultures. So we want to be picking out the base of his hammer that we've got here, or I should say the head of his hammer, and the one on his side belts. And those are pretty much the only places we're going to be using our gunmetal on. So just a nice even coat is what you need here. Then with those picked out, we're going to come in now with some greedy gold, and we're going to be using these for these nice little talismans slash ornaments and decorations that he has on him here. I want to make it that since he is sort of a stone giant, he's a stone giant carver, so he carves up rocks and precious metals and stuff. I want to make these ornaments flash, and these are the best work that he has accomplished, so I want to make them out of gold, since it's a nice rare material that he's probably never really come across too often with, and he's made these nice little ornaments all over his self. And then once we have that complete, we're going to come in now with a wash. I'm going to be using Drakenhof Nightshade to do this. And this is a blue wash. And we're going to be applying this over all of our stone giant skin. Because as I said before, I want him to be a sort of bluish grey colour in the skin, rather than just a straight grey. So adding in this blue wash is going to help with that. And since we've already applied the highlights and stuff, it's going to hopefully blend those highlights together while applying the wash and make it look a little bit more natural. That's the effect I'm trying to go for anyway. I'm just trying out this sort of technique of applying highlights and stuff first and then applying a wash over it to try and have that wash blend all those parts together and make it look a little bit more natural, rather than going the opposite way around. And then once that wash is dry, we're going to come in now with our second wash, and that's going to be agrax earthshade. And we want to be applying this over the stone, the leather working he has, over his wooden handles, everywhere that isn't gold and metal, basically. It's basically any metallic color we want to be avoiding. So just giving a nice good overall coverage and making sure that we don't have any unnecessary pooling where we don't want it to be. Then once we have that complete, we're going to come in now with some nuln oil, and this is going to be used for our metallic area, and that's just going to be of our silver metallic, so just our hammers here that we've got on him, as well as don't forget the little belt buckles he has on there as well, because we painted them up with our gunmetal, so don't forget to do those while you're going around the piece and making sure that you don't get any pooling you don't want to, especially since there's a lot of little grooves in the areas where we're going to be applying this wash. And then once you have that dry, we're going to come in now with some reikland fleshshade, and this is what we're going to be applying over the gold areas, because we want to enrich that gold, and reikland fleshshade having a little bit of a red tone in it, since it's more of a skin color, is going to really help emphasize that gold and make it a little bit more shining, bright, and impressive on the piece. And then once you have that complete, we're going to come in now with some alien purple. And what we're going to be doing with our alien purple is we're going to be applying it to the nice sort of crystals he has carved on him. So on his jewelry, he's got this nice necklace as well as this band around his shoulder area here. And we're going to be picking those out with our purple, making sure that we be very careful not to get this paint anywhere we don't want it to be, and making sure that you do it in a couple of layers so we get a real rich color of the purple as well. And then once you've done that, what we're going to be doing is coming in with a little bit of ivory and that same alien purple again, and we're just going to be mixing them together in sort of a roughly 3 parts alien purple to 1 part ivory, just making that purple stick out a little bit more. And all we're going to be doing is picking out those raised edges on the crystals there, so we've got a little bit of light shining onto those crystals, and it's going to really help make it pop out and look more sort of realistic crystal appearance. Anyway, that's the hope I'm going for anyway. And then once you have that complete, we're going to come in now with some plate mail metal, and this is a nice more brighter color metal than our gunmetal will apply to, and we want to be applying it to those areas where the sun's naturally going to hit onto those metallics and really bring those bits out like the sun is nicely shining on these areas. So they're nice big flat areas, so don't be afraid to spend a little bit of time to try and give it a little bit smoother finish as well. And then once we've done that, time to come in with some retributor armour, which is a nice brighter gold from our greedy gold we have here, and it's going to really help sell the effect that it's nice and shining and impressive, like he takes good care of them and sort of polishes up his finest bits of artwork. And then once you've done all that, it's just a matter of painting up your base and applying whatever you want to give it the scene that it deserves. So stick around to the showcase part of the video so you can see what I came up with. And with all that completed, we have finally finished painting up the stone giant Carver from the Reaper miniatures. And I hope this has been useful for you guys, whether you want to follow along or you just enjoy me painting up some cool miniatures. But with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.